My name does not matter. What matters is what I lived in those years when I was neck deep with the Sinaloa Cartel, when everyone swore that Mayo Zambada was the absolute boss, the one who decided everything, the one who commanded more than anyone else. But the truth is, it was not like that, and I discovered it too late, when I was already tangled in a web that could not be seen but squeezed tighter than any rifle barrel against your forehead. I entered the business like many others, out of necessity. I had no other choice. I worked as a helper in a mechanic shop in Culiacan. The pay was not enough even for tortillas, and my mother's illness forced me to look for quick money. A neighbor connected me with people who needed drivers to move merchandise. They said it was easy and they paid in dollars. Desperation blinded me and I accepted. The first time they gave me a truck loaded with boxes that smelled of chemicals, my hands shook on the steering wheel. But I passed through checkpoints without problem. Nobody stopped me, and at the end, they gave me a bundle of bills that felt like winning the lottery. That is how it all started. From driver to lookout, from lookout to warehouse manager, and little by little, I got inside a world where the rules were not written in books, but in glances and silences. In those first months, the name of Mayo was everywhere. People said he was the boss of bosses, that nothing moved without him, that even politicians answered to him. I believed it like everyone else, but soon I began to notice strange things, orders that suddenly changed, movements that were canceled even when everything was ready, and the explanation was always the same. The Lord has spoken. But nobody said who that Lord was. I thought it was Mayo himself, until one day in a warehouse meeting near Mazatlan, I saw how things really worked. There were plaza bosses, commanders, and even men in suits. The meeting was led by someone everyone recognized as Mayo's emissary. He spoke loudly and gave clear instructions, but at one moment he asked for silence because he had to take a call. Everyone froze, even the music outside stopped. He answered and his face changed. His hard voice turned into submission. He nodded, repeated, "Yes, sir," "Understood, sir," and then changed everything he had. Just order, the routes, the payments, even the punishments. Nobody protested, nobody dared. And right there, I understood that someone above Mayo was pulling the strings. Someone who was not in that room, but who everyone obeyed as if he was standing right there. That night, I could not sleep, my head spun around, because the truth was something else, and I had already seen it. The image of Mayo as the only boss was just a facade. Behind him was a shadow who decided everything without showing his face, and that shadow had everyone on their knees. I confirmed it days later during a transport operation. We were moving heavy weapons from Durango to Culiacan. Everything was carefully planned, but halfway we received the order to stop immediately and wait for instructions. Nobody understood. We were exposed on the road, and suddenly a federal patrol appeared. They escorted us like diplomats to a warehouse where we unloaded everything without a problem. The Federals left without saying a word, and the bosses told us to thank the Lord for his support. I froze, because that meant the man in the shadows not only controlled Mayo, he also had authorities in his pocket, the very same ones who were supposed to be the law, and that was only the beginning of what I was about to see, because the higher I climbed in the organization, the clearer it became that the true power belonged to someone who never appeared in corridors in the news or in portraits in the mountains. It was a ghost in a suit who commanded more than anyone else and decided our lives with a single phone call. With time, I started to realize that this Lord was not just a ghost, he was the one who really wrote the rules of the game. Nobody mentioned his name. They just said the Lord has spoken, and that was enough to change any plan. One day you were ready to go on an operation, and suddenly it was cancelled. Another day you were about to receive a payment, and it was frozen until further notice. Everything was decided in short calls with a tone nobody dared to argue. What struck me most was how even the commanders who said they reported directly to Mayo trembled when that phone rang. I watched their faces. Men capable of wiping out 20 rivals without hesitation, but who sweated cold when they heard that calm voice on the other end. That made it clear to me that the corridors were only half the truth. The other half was hidden in an office that nobody could locate but everyone feared. I lived closely one day in a warehouse in Culiatan where we were preparing to move a shipment of weapons. Everything was ready: drivers, trucks, routes, even envelopes with bribes. Then the plaza boss arrived and, with 3 words, destroyed all the planning. The Lord said no, nobody asked why. They just started to pack things back up. I whispered to a partner asking what had happened, and he cut me off immediately. Do not be stupid, those questions kill. He said it with his eyes wide open as if begging me to shut my mouth. I understood that even curiosity was dangerous. The Lord did not forgive loose tongues or restless ears. That was the moment I learned to swallow doubts, to keep silent even if it ate me inside, because more than one man who wanted to know too much ended up gone overnight without a trace, as if he had never existed. The punishments were what left the deepest mark. One time a partner we all called a Güero took a small amount of money from the Halcones payroll. It was not much compared to what we move every week, but someone reported him and the Lord did not hesitate. Güero disappeared for 3 days and then was found hanging from a bridge with a cardboard sign that said, "Discipline is non negotiable." It hit us hard because he was not a bad guy, just careless. But it showed us discipline was not a suggestion, it was a sacred law. From then on, everyone guarded every bill like it was gold. Nobody wanted to be the next example, because when the Lord wanted to send a message, it was never private, it was in the open, big and bloody so everyone would learn without asking questions. What shook me most was realizing that not even Mayo was free from those rules. One time in a meeting, we heard on the radio that a large shipment had been lost. Mayo was furious and started giving orders for immediate retaliation. But right then, he got a call, he answered, and his face changed completely, from shouting to silence, nodding yes, sir, understood, sir. And then he canceled everything he had just ordered. That is when I understood Mayo did not have the last word. That for all the fame, the songs, the power people gave him, in the end he also followed orders like any soldier. And that blew my mind because if the man everyone thought was the supreme boss was also just obeying, then who the hell was the real boss? That question haunted me for months until one night I finally heard him with my own ears, and from that moment I knew my life would never be the same. The first time I heard the Lord's voice with my own ears was on a night that seemed normal but ended up marking me forever. I was in a safe house outside Culiacan, guarding some cargo with a small group. Suddenly, the plaza boss told me to follow him into a room because an important call was coming. On the table, there was a satellite phone. When it rang, he answered, and after a moment, he passed it to me. I thought it was a joke until I heard that voice. It was not the rough voice of a gangster. It was calm, educated, slow, like someone who had studied law or business. He repeated my full name and said a phrase that froze me. In this business, curiosity kills more than bullets. Stay in your role and you will live. Try to see more than you should and you will not grow old. Then he hung up. That short moment changed me completely. When I walked back into the main room, everyone was watching me, almost as if they were checking if I was still alive. I understood then that not many people ever heard his voice directly. From that night, I started receiving more delicate tasks, which I later realized were tests. The first was to follow a man we called the Rabbit. He was spending more money than usual, and the Lord wanted to know if he was stealing. I spent weeks watching him until I confirmed he had taken money that was not his. I reported it, and 2 days later he disappeared. Nobody mentioned him again. I felt sick because I knew my report was the reason. That is when I understood working for the Lord meant not only obeying, but also carrying the guilt of putting others in the ground. Later, I saw how every mission was planned with information far beyond what we could gather. One time they sent us to Nuevo León to push our rival group. We thought it would be a bloody battle, but before we moved, we received an envelope full of details: maps of houses, names of families, even the hours when lights went out. It was like a script already written. We followed it, and everything happened exactly as planned. The rivals fell quickly, and we left without a scratch. That precision could not come from the Mayo or any plaza boss. It came from the Lord, and everyone knew it. The fear of him was constant. One day in a meeting, a man questioned one of his instructions. He said a certain route was too dangerous and suggested another. Everyone froze. because we all knew that speaking against him was forbidden. A week later, the man was found dead in his car with a message that said, "Obedience is life." That day I understood doubt itself was a crime. To the Lord it did not matter if you were brave, loyal, or useful. The only thing he demanded was absolute obedience. Every time I saw a body with a message, I remembered his warning in my ear. Curiosity kills more than bullets. And I realized I was living on borrowed time, because sooner or later my own thoughts would betray me. With time, I saw that the Lord did not only control soldiers and plaza bosses, he also moved politicians, businessmen, and even military officers like chess pieces. The first time I realized this was when I had to deliver 2 suitcases full of money to a building in Culiacan. From the outside, it looked like a construction company. We went in through a back door, and inside there was a man in a suit waiting. He was a local congressman. At first I thought it was coincidence, but when I saw the way he greeted our boss with respect and thanked him for support in his campaign, I understood it was not chance. He even said he would send regards to the Lord. In that moment, I knew this shadow was far above our world. He had the power to bend people who were supposed to govern us. Another time I saw it with a mayor in Sinaloa. He had won election saying he wanted to clean the city, but once he was in office, he also attended our meetings. One night he tried to act tough, saying he wanted out. 2 weeks later, his body appeared, and there was a message saying promises mean nothing compared to the word of the Lord. That was when I understood that even those who rode in armored trucks with heavy security were not safe if they disobeyed. The rest of the politicians quickly aligned themselves. They knew that breathing depended more on pleasing a ghost than on serving the people who had voted for them. Really blew my mind was the way the Lord managed the relationship with the military. During a big operation, we had to move cargo through the mountains. The route was filled with army checkpoints. Everyone was nervous, convinced we were heading into suicide. Then the order came to move anyway. We obeyed. When we reached the checkpoints, the soldiers just waved us through. Some even saluted us. We passed like diplomats. Later I learned that this was arranged by the Lord himself. He dealt directly with high-ranking officers, paying them amounts of money that none of us could imagine. Thanks to that, our shipments moved as if they were official material. That was when I realized real power was not in guns, but in the connections he had with people who were supposed to represent the law. The strangest part was that nobody ever saw him in the streets, never in a convoy, not even in pictures, yet his presence was everywhere, in the envelopes we received with instructions, in sudden changes of plans that arrived at midnight, in the frightened faces of politicians, in the forced smiles of generals. He was like a ghost that seeped into every corner of the business, and all of us knew nothing worked without him. Even the Mayo, the legend everyone admired, was just another piece in his machine. What marked me most was hearing a commander whisper after a meeting, "Mayo is the face, but the Lord is the mind." That sentence stayed in my head. It meant that I was trapped in a game where the real boss would never appear in a song or a newspaper, but he had my life in his hand. The hardest moment of my life came when the Lord put me in a situation I could never forget. Until then, I had obeyed every order without hesitation. I had already carried enough guilt, but this time it was different. It was not about a rival or a careless lookout. It was about my own blood. The order came one night. They called me on the radio and told me to show up at a warehouse. When I arrived, the plaza boss looked serious and pointed to a photo on the table. It was my cousin Antonio, the same man who years earlier had introduced me to the connections that pulled me into this life. The boss said the Lord believed he was talking too much. Because he was family, it was my responsibility. He placed a pistol in front of me and left me to face the decision. My hands shook. Inside, I refused to believe it. but the warning that the Lord gave me long ago echoed in my head. Curiosity kills more than bullets. That night, I was frozen. My mind went in circles. If I obey, I will carry the weight forever. If I disobey, they will kill me with him. I thought about hiding him, about sending him away. But the Lord was never blind. He had eyes everywhere. Any false move would expose me. I did not go after him that night. I hid instead, as if that could change destiny. At dawn, I heard the news. My cousin was found dead on a ranch with a sign that said, "Discipline cannot be broken." Even if I had not pulled the trigger, I knew that his death was also in my hands, because by being part of this life, I had already sentenced him. From then on, I understood that under the Lord, nobody was safe, not even family. After that, I started planning my exit. I could not keep living with that guilt. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my cousin's face. I knew one day it would be my turn. I began hiding money in walls, inside tires, in false ceilings. I got false documents. I looked for contacts outside, all in silence, without telling anyone. Because even your best friend could become your executioner if he learned you wanted out. I knew the Lord would smell betrayal faster than anyone. Just the idea of escape gave me a little air, a bit of hope, but deep down I knew the truth. In this world, few escape alive, and even fewer after hearing his voice. While I made my secret plans, the war outside grew worse. Rivals expanded, battles became bloodier, and the Lord tightened the rules. He ordered more internal cleanings. People I saw every day vanished overnight. Some said they had been taken by rivals, others said they had fled, but I knew the truth. They had been erased on his orders. Each disappearance reminded me that my name could be next on the list. Every day I stayed alive felt like a borrowed gift. It was not luck, it was because he still needed me. And the day I stopped being useful, I knew my end would arrive without warning. When I finally decided to leave, it was not about fear anymore, it was survival. I knew that sooner or later the Lord would erase me because I had been too close to his shadow. I had seen and heard too much, and in that world, anyone who knows too much ends up buried without a name. My plan was simple but dangerous: save enough money, get false papers, and cross the border without looking back. For months, I hid bills in secret places, bought documents from contacts in Monterrey, and rehearsed every step in my head. I trusted no one, not friends, not partners, because in that world, even your closest brother could betray you if it meant staying alive. The last order I received pushed me over the edge. They wanted me to execute a journalist who was investigating the money routes. They showed me photos of the man, old, with children and grandchildren. For the first time, I felt I could not do it. My hands had killed before, but this was different. I decided that same night to disappear. I used the false papers and found a coyote who hid me in a trailer with a double floor. I thought I had fooled everyone. Hours later, I was in Houston, hidden in a cheap hotel, convinced that I was finally free. At dawn, I found a white envelope under my door. Inside, there was a photo of me entering that hotel and a short note: "Never forget who gave you permission to live." My blood turned to ice. That meant my escape had not been because I was smart. It was because the Lord allowed it. He had watched me the entire time, and instead of killing me, he had condemned me to live with his shadow forever. Since then, my life has never been the same. I live in another country with another name, but I never sleep well. Every car parked outside looks like a threat. Every unknown call makes me shake. Every man in a black suit could be the one sent to finish me. I know that no matter how far I run, the Lord still has eyes everywhere. And the day He decides my time is over, They will find me even underground. Years have passed, and the world still believes Mayo was the supreme boss, the legend, the mind of the cartel. People sing songs about him, write stories, and fear his name. But I know the truth. Mayo was just the visible face. The real boss never appeared in corridos or in news reports. The real boss was the ghost in the suit, the voice on the phone, the mind behind everything. He let me live, but he owns my life. And the worst part is that deep down, I know one day I will hear that voice again calling my name. And when that happens, nothing will save me.